The emergency message reached Earth at exactly 0347 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Ambassador Dae-ho Kim was drinking his morning coffee when the red priority alert flashed across his personal communicator. He read the message twice, set down his cup, and called his team. "Pack your bags," he told them. "We're going to the council." Ji-won Park arrived at the embassy within 30 minutes, her hair still wet from a quick shower. As Earth's chief diplomatic strategist, she had been expecting this call for weeks. The Zephyrian trade dispute had been growing worse every day, and now it seemed the galaxy was finally ready to tear itself apart. "How bad is it?" she asked, sliding into the chair across from Dae-ho's desk. "Bad enough that they're asking humans to help," Dae-ho replied. "After 3 months of pretending we don't exist." The Galactic Council's chrome and crystal chambers had seen many crises over the past 1,000 years, but nothing quite like this. 47 different species had been arguing for 3 standard cycles about trade routes, shipping rights, and resource distribution. What had started as a simple disagreement between 2 mining companies had grown into something that threatened to split the galaxy in half. Captain Min-ho Lee commanded the human frigate Soul's Promise as it approached the massive council station. The ship was small compared to the warships already gathered there. Crystalline vessels that looked like floating mountains hung next to sleek predator-shaped craft from the Martial Federation. Everyone had brought their biggest, most impressive ships to make a point. "Look at all those guns," muttered Yoon Seo-yoon from the tactical station. "They're not here to talk." "Maybe that's the problem," Min-ho replied quietly. Dr. Soo-jin Cho was reviewing her files on the various species they would meet. Each delegation had brought their most experienced negotiators, their top economists, their finest legal minds. The humans had brought exactly 5 people in a ship that was older than some of the junior diplomats aboard it. "Are we sure about this?" Soo-jin asked as they docked. "We're walking into a room full of people who have been fighting about this for months." "That's exactly why we might be able to help," Ji-won said. "Sometimes you need fresh eyes." The council chambers were magnificent. The ceiling stretched up into darkness while holographic displays showed star maps, trade routes, and economic data floating in the air. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in sections arranged by species, with the most powerful groups occupying the prime spots near the center. Humans had been assigned seats in the back corner, Archon Velthera of the Crystalline. Hegemony was speaking when the human delegation entered. Her voice rang like wind chimes as she explained why her people's trade routes could not be compromised. Behind her, massive displays showed the movement of cargo ships, the flow of resources, and the economic impact of any changes to the current system. "The hegemony has maintained these routes for over 6 centuries, she declared. "We will not abandon them now." Prime Korthon of the Martial Federation rose from his seat. His species looked like armored bears, and when he spoke, his voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. "The Federation's military has protected these shipping lanes since before your species learned to build starships," he growled at Velthara. "Our claim is older and stronger." Other delegates began shouting support for one side or the other. The Void Lords wanted to renegotiate everything. The Stellar Dominion threatened to withdraw from the Council entirely. Smaller species were taking sides based on old alliances and ancient grudges. Dae-ho watched it all with careful eyes. He had read every report, studied every proposal, and analyzed every economic projection. The problem was not really about trade routes at all. It was about power, respect, and who got to make decisions for everyone else. "They're not listening to each other," Ji-won whispered. "They stopped listening months ago," Dae-ho replied. The arguments went on for hours. Species that had been allies for generations were now threatening each other with economic sanctions and military action. Trade had already slowed to a crawl as shipping companies waited to see what would happen. Some colonies were running short of essential supplies. Others were stockpiling resources in case of war. Finally, Council Moderator Zextai called for order. The ancient being's forearms gestured for silence while his translator explained the current situation. "We have reached an impasse," the voice said. "All proposals have been rejected. All compromises have failed. Military forces are mobilizing across the galaxy. Perhaps it is time to consider more extreme solutions," suggested someone from the Techno Collective. "What could be more extreme than the complete collapse of galactic trade?" asked a delegate from the agricultural worlds. That was when Dae-ho stood up. The chamber fell silent. Every eye, sensor, and optical organ turned toward the small human delegation in the back corner. Ambassador Kim was not an impressive figure by galactic standards. He was average height, wore simple clothes, and carried no weapons or symbols of power. But something in his posture made everyone pay attention. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice calm and clear. "Humanity has observed these negotiations with great interest. You were not invited to participate," Velthara said coldly. "No," Deho agreed. "We were not, but we have been watching, we have been learning, and we have been making our own preparations." Murmurs ran through the chamber. What preparations could humans possibly make? They were newcomers to galactic civilization, with limited technology and no significant military power. Their entire merchant fleet could fit inside some of the larger ships currently orbiting the station. "Humanity has reached a decision regarding this trade dispute," Deho continued. "You have no standing in this matter." Prime Korthon rumbled. "Perhaps not," Deho said. "But we do have a position." He paused, looking around the chamber at all the powerful delegates, the floating displays of military might, and the complex charts showing centuries of established trade patterns. Humanity formally rejects these negotiations. The silence that followed was absolute. Then the shouting began. "Reject? How dare you? You cannot reject what you were never part of. This is an insult to the entire council." But Deho just stood there, calm and patient, waiting for the noise to die down. When it did, he smiled slightly. "Perhaps we should explain what we mean." The chaos in the council chambers was immediate and explosive. Delegates who had been fighting each other moments before suddenly found common ground in their outrage at human audacity. How dare these primitive newcomers reject negotiations they had not even been invited to join? "This is an outrage," shouted the representative from the banking consortium. "Humans have no authority here." "Remove them from the chamber," demanded someone from the Stellar Dominion. But Deho Kim remained standing, his expression calm and patient. He waited for the shouting to die down, then gestured to his colleague. "Hyunwoo Nam, our trade economist, would like to share some information with you." Hyunwoo stood and activated his portable holographic projector. The device was small and unremarkable compared to the massive displays used by other delegations. But the images it created made every alien in the room fall silent. The first hologram showed shipping routes throughout the disputed sectors. But these were not the official trade lanes that the Council had been fighting about for 3 months. These were new routes, previously unknown pathways that seemed to connect dozens of worlds that had never been part of the major trading networks. "What is this?" Archon Velthara demanded. "These are the shipping lanes that humanity has been using for the past 2 years, Hyunwoo explained in simple, clear language. "While you have been arguing about who owns the old routes, we have been building new ones." The second hologram appeared, showing resource flow charts. The data was stunning. Rare metals from mining worlds that supposedly only sold to the crystalline hegemony. Agricultural products from farming planets that were supposed to be exclusive suppliers to the Martial Federation. Industrial components from manufacturing stations that had never appeared in any council database. "Impossible," Prime Korthon growled. "These worlds are bound by exclusive contracts." "With respect," said Hyunwoo, "those contracts only apply to council members. Humanity is not part of the council, so we are free to negotiate our own agreements." The third hologram was the most shocking of all. It showed the economic impact of these new trade networks. In just 2 years, human-facilitated commerce had grown from nothing to representing nearly 15% of all galactic trade. More importantly, it was growing every day. Deho stepped forward again. "While the 47 council species have spent 3 cycles arguing about existing trade routes, humanity has been establishing alternatives. We have negotiated directly with mining colonies, agricultural worlds, and manufacturing stations. All the players that you consider too small or insignificant to worry about, you, have been interfering in established commerce," accused the banking consortium representative. "We have been conducting free trade," Ji-1 Park replied, rising from her seat. "We approach worlds that need resources and worlds that have resources. We help them find each other. We arrange fair deals. We provide reliable shipping. It is really quite simple." Captain Min Ho Lee's tactical officer, Yun Seo Yoon, activated her own display. This one showed something that made the alien delegates' blood run cold. A network map of human merchant vessels, scattered throughout the galaxy like a spiderweb, hundreds of small ships moving along routes that the major powers had never even noticed. "You cannot possibly have that many ships," protested someone from the Void Lords. "We do not," Yunseo admitted. "Most of these vessels belong to independent traders, colony transport services, and local shipping companies. But they all work with human coordination networks." The implications were staggering. While the Council species had been focused on controlling the major shipping lanes, humans had been quietly organizing all the small operators that everyone else ignored. They had turned thousands of individual traders into a coordinated merchant fleet. "But how do you manage logistics on such a scale?" asked Dr. Thyssen of the Techno Collective. Her species prided itself on efficiency and organization. Bo-Ram Kang, humanity's senior economist, stood to answer. She was young and soft-spoken, but her voice carried clearly through the chamber. "We use a simple system. Every ship reports where it is going and what cargo it carries. Our computers match up ships that need cargo with worlds that have cargo. Everyone benefits." "That is impossible," Dr. Thyssen insisted. "The computational requirements alone would be enormous." "Not if you keep it simple," Bo-Ram replied. "We do not try to control everything. We just help people find what they need." The chamber fell silent as the full scope of humanity's strategy became clear. They had not tried to compete with the established powers. They had not attempted to take over existing trade routes. Instead, they had found all the gaps in the system and filled them. Archon Velthara's crystalline form flickered with anger. "This is economic warfare. This is economic cooperation," Deho corrected gently. "We have not interfered with any of your established trade agreements. We have simply created new opportunities for everyone else. You have undermined the stability of the entire galactic economy." Prime Corthon roared. "Have we?" Jiwan asked. She gestured to another holographic display that showed overall economic activity across the galaxy. "Production is up. Employment is up. Resource distribution is more efficient than it has been in decades. The only thing that has gone down is artificial scarcity." The silence that followed was different from the shocked quiet earlier. This was the silence of powerful beings realizing that the game had changed while they were not paying. "Attention. You still have no right to interfere in council business," the Stellar Dominion representative said, but his voice lacked conviction. "We are not interfering," Deho replied. "We are offering an alternative. If the council cannot reach an agreement on trade routes, there are other options available." "What other options?" Moderator Zextai asked. Deho smiled. "The 17 worlds that currently depend on human shipping networks for essential supplies might have some suggestions." The delegate from the agricultural worlds leaned forward. "What 17 worlds?" Hyunwoo activated his projector again. This time, the hologram showed a list of planets and colonies that were receiving critical resources through human trade networks: food shipments to mining worlds, medical supplies to frontier colonies, industrial equipment to agricultural planets, all the boring everyday commerce that kept civilization running. "These worlds have been cut off from normal trade due to your sanctions and blockades," Bo-Ram explained. "We have been providing emergency supply runs to prevent humanitarian crises." "That is not possible," insisted the banking consortium representative. "We monitor all significant economic activity." "You monitor all council member activity," Jiwan corrected. "You have been ignoring everyone else." The truth hit the chamber like a physical blow. While the major powers had been fighting over their established routes and exclusive contracts, humanity had been quietly building relationships with all the planets and peoples that the Council considered unimportant. And now those unimportant worlds held the key to galactic stability. "Cut off our trade routes," Deho said quietly, "and 17 worlds face famine within 2 standard months. 43 worlds lose access to critical medical supplies. 68 colonies will have to shut down industrial production." He paused, looking around the chamber at all the shocked faces. "Still think we have no standing in this matter?" Council Security Chief Zenth rose from his position near the chamber's main security station. His species was known for their analytical minds and their inability to understand deception. When he spoke, his mechanical voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Explain how this was accomplished," he demanded. "Our economic monitoring systems show no evidence of large-scale human commercial operations. Our intelligence networks detected no organized effort to establish alternative trade routes. This level of coordination should have been impossible to hide. The alien delegates murmured agreement. The most powerful species in the galaxy had intelligence services that monitored every significant economic transaction. They tracked cargo movements, analyzed shipping patterns, and maintained detailed records of all major trade agreements. How could humans have built a shadow economy without anyone noticing? Perhaps we can answer that, said a quiet voice from the back of the human delegation. Tai Jin-ro had been sitting silently throughout the entire session. He was not a diplomat or an economist or a military officer. His official title was Logistics Coordination Specialist, which sounded impressively bureaucratic, but actually meant he helped organize shipping schedules. He was the kind of person who usually remained invisible during important meetings. Now he stood up, and every powerful being in the chamber focused their attention on him. The answer is simple, Taejin said in his soft voice. We talked to everyone. The silence that followed was profound. Elaborate, Security Chief Zenth commanded. Taejin looked around the chamber, taking in all the magnificent displays of power and technology. When humans first joined galactic civilization, we did what we always do. We started conversations, not with governments or corporations or major powers, with people. He activated a small handheld device and a modest hologram appeared showing a simple star map. Our first trade agreement was with a small mining operation in the Kepler sector. They needed food supplies. We knew farmers on Earth who had surplus crops. We introduced them to each other. That is hardly revolutionary, scoffed Archon Velthera. You are right, Taejin agreed. It was completely ordinary. That is why it worked. The hologram changed, showing more connections appearing across the star map. The miners told other miners. The farmers told other farmers. Soon we were handling supply runs for dozens of small operations. Then hundreds. Yeji Song, one of the younger human diplomats, stood to continue the explanation. We discovered something interesting. Most trade in the galaxy flows through big companies and government agencies. But there are thousands of small operators who get ignored. Family businesses, colony cooperatives, independent traders, they all had the same problems. What problems? Asked Dr. Thyssen of the Techno Collective. They could not find each other, Yeji said simply. A mining colony would need medical supplies, but they had no way to contact medical manufacturers directly. A farming world would have surplus food, but no connections to places that needed it. Everyone was forced to go through big trading companies that charged huge fees and made them wait for months. So you became middlemen, accused the banking consortium representative. We became matchmakers, corrected In-ho Choi, who managed humanity's shipping coordination networks. We do not buy or sell anything. We just help people find what they need and arrange transportation. The human delegation began working together to paint a picture of their operations. It was not a grand strategy or a complex conspiracy. It was exactly what they claimed. Organized helpfulness on a massive scale. We started with simple databases, explained Taejin. Lists of who had what resources and who needed what supplies. When we found matches, we would introduce them to each other. But how did you manage transportation? Asked Captain Shular of the Merchant Marine Alliance. We did not, In-ho replied. We just helped coordinate it. Most colonies have small cargo ships for local transport. Independent traders own vessels that can handle longer routes. We created a communication network that let them work together. The scope of it was beginning to dawn on the council delegates. Humans had not built a competing trade empire. They had organized thousands of existing small operators into an efficient network. They had turned the galaxy's background economy into a visible, coordinated system. This still does not explain how you avoided our monitoring systems, insisted. Security Chief Zenth, we did not avoid them, said Yeji. We were just too small to register. She gestured to her colleagues. Each individual transaction was tiny. A few tons of medical supplies here, a cargo hold full of food there. Nothing that would show up in your reports about major economic activity. But thousands of small transactions add up, Boram Kang added. When you connect enough small needs with enough small suppliers, the total volume becomes significant. Daeho Kim stepped forward again. This is humanity's revolutionary approach to galactic commerce. We treat every world as important. We consider every species worth trading with. We believe that small does not mean insignificant. The alien delegates were struggling to understand. Their entire economic system was built on big deals between major powers. They thought in terms of exclusive contracts, territorial rights, and strategic resources. The idea of organizing thousands of tiny transactions into a major trade network was completely foreign to them. But the administrative costs alone, protested the banking consortium representative. Managing that many individual relationships should be impossible. Only if you try to control everything, Jiwan Park replied. We do not control anything. We just provide information and coordination services. The actual traders make their own decisions about what to buy, what to sell, and where to ship it. You have created chaos, declared Prime Korthon. We have created opportunity, Deho replied calmly, and apparently we have created competition. The truth was finally becoming clear. Humanity's trade network was not a threat because it was big or powerful or technologically advanced. It was a threat because it was fair. Anyone could join. Everyone was treated equally. Small operators had the same access to markets as large corporations. This undermines the entire structure of galactic commerce, Archon Velthera said coldly. Does it? Asked Taejin. Or does it just provide alternatives? He looked around the chamber at all the powerful delegates. You can still maintain your exclusive contracts and territorial agreements. No one is stopping you, but now everyone else has options too. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For centuries, the major powers had maintained their dominance by controlling access to markets. Small colonies and minor species had no choice but to accept whatever terms the big players offered. Humanity had changed that by creating a system where size did not determine access. We never intended to disrupt anything, Deho said quietly. We just wanted to help people find what they needed. But when the Council excluded us from these negotiations, we realized that our informal network had become something more important. What? Asked moderator Zextai. Deho smiled sadly. An alternative to a system that only works for the people who are already powerful. The emergency session was called within 6 hours of the human revelation. The most powerful members of the Galactic Council gathered in a private chamber, away from the smaller species and independent observers. Empress Thera of the Void Lords, Prime Korthon of the Martial Federation, Archon Velthara of the Crystalline Hegemony, and Chancellor Nordex of the Stellar Dominion had not agreed on anything for months. But they were united now. This cannot be allowed to continue, Empress Thyra declared. Her species looked like shadows given form, and her voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. These humans have created a weapon more dangerous than any fleet. Economic disruption on this scale threatens the stability of our entire civilization, agreed Chancellor Nordex. We must act immediately. Agreed, rumbled Prime Korthon. I am mobilizing enforcement fleets to blockade all human shipping routes. We will strangle this shadow network before it grows any larger. And I will implement economic sanctions, added Archon Velthara. Any world that continues trading through human networks will lose access to crystalline hegemony markets. Within hours, the most powerful military and economic forces in the galaxy were moving into position. Warships took up stations along the trade routes that humans had been using. Banking networks froze credits flowing to companies that worked with human coordinators. Threats were sent to colony governors and corporate executives. The message was clear. Return to the established system or face the consequences. But the major powers had made a critical error. They were trying to fight a new kind of war with old kinds of weapons. Sungmin Bai commanded the human merchant marine from a converted passenger ship called the Busan Express. It was not an impressive vessel by military standards, but it served as the coordination center for hundreds of independent cargo haulers throughout the galaxy. When the blockades began, he was ready. Activate Contingency Protocol 7, he ordered his communications officer. Sir, that will expose our entire network structure, the officer warned. Good, Sungmin replied. It is time everyone knew how big this network really is. The Contingency Protocol was humanity's emergency plan for exactly this situation. Instead of trying to hide their operations, they would make everything completely public. Every shipping route, every trade agreement, every economic relationship would be broadcast openly across the galaxy's communication networks. The results were immediate and dramatic. Dae Young Im, working from the human embassy on the council station, began receiving messages from species that most council members had never heard of. The Free Colony Alliance represented over 200 independent settlements scattered across the outer regions. The Independent Miners Consortium controlled small-scale mining operations on dozens of worlds. The agricultural cooperative included family farms on nearly 50 planets. All of them were declaring their support for the human trade network. "We have been ignored by the Council for too long," transmitted the spokesman for the Free Colony Alliance. "The humans treat us as equals. We will not abandon them now." "Our members have prospered under the Human Coordination System," announced the Independent Miners Consortium. "Any attempt to destroy this network will be met with resistance." Within 12 hours, over 300 previously unknown organizations had publicly joined what the media was calling the Shadow Trade Alliance. Many of them controlled resources that the major powers had assumed they could take for granted. Captain Min-ho Lee was monitoring the situation from the Soul's Promise when the real bombshell hit. Junho Seo, his intelligence officer, had been quietly investigating the economic data that humans had gathered over 2 years of trade coordination. "Captain, you need to see this," Junho said, activating his secure display. "I have been analyzing the pricing patterns in Council trade agreements." What he had found was evidence of systematic price manipulation. The major Council powers had not been competing fairly. They had been colluding to keep prices artificially high and limit market access for smaller players. "Look at these patterns," Junho explained. "The crystalline hegemony raises prices for rare metals. The Martial Federation immediately raises their shipping rates. The Void Lords increase energy costs. They are coordinating their actions to maximize profits." "That is illegal under Council trade regulations," Minho observed. "It is more than illegal," Junho replied. "It is systematic oppression. They have been keeping smaller species dependent by controlling access to essential resources." Minho immediately forwarded the evidence to Da-Young Im at the embassy. She in turn shared it with Wan-Sik Yang, Humanities Media Coordinator. Within 6 hours, the information was being broadcast throughout the galaxy. The reaction was explosive. The smaller Council members, who had been silent observers during most of the trade dispute, suddenly realized they had been pawns in a much larger game. The major powers had not been protecting galactic stability. They had been protecting their own monopolies. "We have been betrayed," declared the representative from the agricultural worlds. "Council membership was supposed to provide equal opportunities for all species. Instead, we have been subsidizing the profits of the major powers," added someone from the manufacturing guild. The political situation deteriorated rapidly. Several minor council members announced they were withdrawing from their traditional alliances. Others demanded investigations into trade practices. A few began openly negotiating with the Human Trade Network. But the major powers were not finished. Empress Thyra made one final, desperate move. She activated the Void Lord's most feared weapon, the Economic Isolation Protocol. Any world that continued working with humans would be completely cut off from all Council trade networks. "Choose," her message declared. The established order or chaos, it was a calculated risk. The Void Lords controlled energy distribution throughout much of the galaxy. Cutting off power to rebellious worlds would force them back into line within days. The protocol was activated at exactly midnight, Galactic Standard Time, and absolutely nothing happened. Wan-Sik Yang had spent the previous day working with Taijin Ro and In-Ho Choi to prepare for exactly this scenario. When the Void Lords tried to cut power to worlds that supported the human network, they discovered that those worlds had already arranged alternative energy sources. "How is this possible?" Empress Thera demanded during an emergency communication with the other major powers. The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Jaxthol of the Independent Traders Union, a loose confederation of cargo haulers that most council members considered little better than smugglers. "You forgot about us," he transmitted on an open channel that reached throughout the galaxy. "While you were busy controlling the big trade routes, we were learning to work together. The humans taught us that small can be strong if we cooperate." The Independent Traders Union, it turned out, included over 10,000 small cargo vessels. Many of them carried portable fusion reactors that could provide emergency power to colonies. Others hauled industrial equipment that could establish local manufacturing. Together, they formed a decentralized infrastructure that could not be easily controlled or destroyed. The major powers' economic weapons had become useless. Worse, their threats had united their enemies against them. Da Young Im was coordinating with dozens of new allies when she received an unexpected message. It was from Dr. Chen Tai, the senior economist for the Techno Collective. His species had remained neutral during most of the crisis, but now they were making a surprising announcement. The Techno Collective has completed its analysis of the human trade network, the message read. We conclude that this system is more efficient than traditional council commerce by a factor of 37%. We are withdrawing from all exclusive trade agreements and joining the open market system. The defection of the Techno Collective was the final blow. They controlled much of the galaxy's advanced manufacturing and computer systems. With their support, the human network could expand even faster. Seungmin Bae watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy. The blockades were failing. The sanctions were being ignored. The threats had backfired completely. Sir, his communications officer said, we are receiving surrender requests from 3 council enforcement fleets. They want to join our convoy protection service. Seungmin smiled. Tell them they are welcome. Everyone is welcome. The war was over, and somehow everyone had won except the people who had started it. 3 days after humanity shattered the negotiations, Ambassador Daeho Kim stood before a very different council assembly. The magnificent chrome and crystal chambers looked the same, but everything else had changed. Instead of 47 species arranged in hierarchical seating, there were now 93 different delegations seated in a circle. The new arrivals were not impressive by traditional standards. Colony representatives wore simple work clothes instead of ceremonial robes. Independent traders carried portable computers instead of elaborate ceremonial weapons. Cooperative leaders looked more like farmers and miners than diplomats, but they were the people who actually made the galaxy work. The emergency session will come to order, announced moderator Jex Tai. His ancient voice carried a note of wonder that had not been there before. In 1,000 years of council service, he had never seen anything like this transformation. Before we begin, Daeho said, rising from his seat, I want to address the concerns that have been raised about humanity's actions. The former major powers sat in their traditional places, but they looked diminished somehow. Their threats had failed. Their economic weapons had proven useless. Their exclusive agreements were being abandoned by their own former partners. Some have accused us of economic warfare, Daeho continued. Others claim we have destabilized galactic civilization. I want to explain what we actually did. Hee-Jin Lee, the human representative for colonial affairs, activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy as it had been just 1 week earlier, with trade flowing along established routes controlled by a handful of major powers. Then the display changed, showing the current situation. We did not destroy the old system, Hye-Jin explained. We simply provided alternatives to it. The new map was stunning. Instead of a few major trade routes, there were thousands of smaller pathways connecting previously isolated worlds. Resources flowed more efficiently. Prices had stabilized at fair market levels. Economic activity was up across every measured sector. The secret was not superior technology or military force, Daeho said. The secret was treating everyone fairly. Former Prime Korthon of the Martial Federation stood slowly. His species had lost much of their leverage when their exclusive shipping contracts were abandoned, but he retained his dignity. You have upended centuries of established order, he said, but there was no anger in his voice, only curiosity. How do you maintain stability in such a chaotic system? The answer came from an unexpected source. Tae-Jin Ro, the quiet logistics coordinator who had helped explain humanity's methods, stood to address the former Prime. We do not maintain stability, he said simply. We maintain fairness. Stability follows naturally. Chang-Woo Park, humanity's new economic advisor to the Reformed Council, began explaining the system they had developed. It was called the Galactic Fair Trade Initiative, and it was elegantly simple. Every world, regardless of size or military power, has equal access to markets, he said. No exclusive deals. No territorial restrictions. No artificial scarcity. Just open, honest commerce. But how do you prevent chaos? Asked Dr. Thyssen of the Techno Collective. Her species had adapted quickly to the new system and was already benefiting from increased trade opportunities. We do not prevent chaos, replied Yeji-song. We embrace it, she gestured to another holographic display showing the flow of goods and services throughout the galaxy. It looked chaotic compared to the neat, controlled patterns of the old system. But it was also more responsive, more efficient, and more resilient. Chaos in this case means freedom, Yeji explained. Freedom for small colonies to choose their own trading partners. Freedom for independent traders to find the best opportunities. Freedom for manufacturers to sell to whoever offers the best price. The transformation had been remarkably smooth. Instead of the economic collapse that many had predicted, the galaxy was experiencing unprecedented prosperity. When artificial restrictions were removed and fair competition was restored, everyone benefited. Well, almost everyone. The former major powers were struggling to adapt. Their business models had been based on controlling access to resources and markets. When that control disappeared, they had to compete on equal terms with everyone else. Some, like the Techno Collective, had embraced the change and were thriving. Others, like the Crystalline Hegemony, were stubbornly trying to maintain their old exclusive agreements and watching their profits disappear. "What about security?" asked Captain Zular of the Merchant Marine Alliance. The old system provided protection for major shipping routes. Captain Minho Lee answered that question. Security is now provided cooperatively. Instead of a few large fleets protecting specific routes, we have many smaller groups providing protection for all routes. The Independent Traders Union had evolved into something resembling a mutual defense organization. When pirates threatened one convoy, dozens of nearby ships would respond. The system was more flexible and covered far more territory than the old arrangement. But who is in charge? Demanded former Archon Velthara. Her crystalline form flickered with frustration. Who makes the final decisions? Everyone, replied Deho simply. And no one. He gestured around the chamber at all the new faces, all the species that had never been represented in the old council. Decisions are made by the people they affect. Local issues are handled locally. Regional matters are decided regionally. Galaxy-wide concerns are addressed by everyone together. That is impossible, insisted former Chancellor Nordex of the Stellar Dominion. You cannot run a galactic civilization without central authority. We are not running anything, said Jiwan Park. We are just providing the tools for everyone to run things themselves. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. The galaxy was more prosperous and peaceful than it had been in living memory. The threat of trade wars had been replaced by cooperation. Resource shortages had been eliminated by efficient distribution. Even former enemies were working together for mutual benefit. Captain Minho Lee now commanded a small fleet of diplomatic vessels, traveling throughout the galaxy to help resolve disputes and establish new trade relationships. His latest mission had taken him to a remote sector, where 2 minor species were arguing over mining rights. The solution is simple, he told them during negotiations. Share the resources and share the profits. Everyone wins. It was the same approach that humanity had used to transform galactic civilization. Instead of fighting over limited resources, they had found ways to create more resources for everyone. The former major powers had eventually adapted to the new system. Some, like Prime Korthon, had become advocates for fair trade practices. Others continued to resist, but their influence was fading, as more species discovered the benefits of cooperation. The story was coming to an end, but in many ways it was just the beginning. The galaxy had learned that true strength came not from controlling others, but from helping everyone succeed together. Mi-Young Kim, a young diplomat who shared a surname but no relation to Ambassador Dae-Ho Kim, was teaching at the new Galactic Diplomatic Academy. Her students included representatives from dozens of species, all learning the principles that had transformed their civilization. The secret is not that humans are special, she told her mixed class of aliens and humans. The secret is that everyone is special. You just have to give them the chance to prove it. One of her students, a young crystalline being whose species had been enemies of humanity just months before, raised a translucent hand. But teacher, the student asked, how do we know this system will last? What prevents someone from trying to take control again? Mi-Young smiled. That is the beauty of the system we have built. It does not depend on any one species or any one leader. It depends on all of us working together. As long as we remember that everyone deserves fair treatment, the system will protect itself. She looked around the classroom at all the different faces, all the various species that had once been enemies or strangers, now learning to work together. Besides, she added with a grin, Now that everyone knows how to organize cooperative networks, it would be very difficult for anyone to establish a monopoly again. The class laughed, a sound that mixed human chuckles with alien equivalents of amusement. It was a good sound. It was the sound of a galaxy learning to get along. And in the end, that was humanity's greatest gift to galactic civilization. Not superior technology or military might, but the simple idea that everyone deserved to be treated with respect and fairness. It had taken the galaxy thousands of years to learn that lesson, but now that they had learned it, they would never forget it.